Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big League Breakdowns for day 10 of Around the League in 30 days as we stop in the state of Colorado to talk about the Rockies, the young core that they have, and what the future holds for them in the year of 2025. My name is Tyler, and my co hosts today, Will and John. Bobby, the producer, back at it once again. And we go on to another team that does not have a lot of expectations. In fact, hasn't had a lot of expectations for a number of years now, and the fans in Colorado want to see some good baseball, and they're just not getting it. We will take
Do
a
they
look.
though?
I think they do because they're not getting it from the Broncos either. Trust me. Um,
Well, they
let's.
just made the
I
playoffs.
know.
What do you
I know.
mean?
I know. I know. All right. Let's look at that lineup for the 2025 Rockies. Starting at the top, Brenton Doyle. Nice season he had in 2024. Ezekiel Tobar as well. John's favorite player in the MLB, Ryan McMahon, still at that third base spot.
Free
Every
this man. Free him.
Everybody's favorite
Send
Anthony
him to a
Rendon
winner.
Jr., Kris Bryant at that fourth spot if he plays this year. Michael Taglio, Nolan Jones, Tierra Estrada comes over. Pirates legend Jacob Stallings. You know, if they play on the Pirates, I gotta say Pirates legend. Kyle Farmer coming in as well this offseason. And that is the offense. Not too much to write home about. On the defensive side, on the pitching side of things, not too much to talk about either. Herman Marquez, who's been there for at least 115 years, still there. Ryan Feltner, Kyle Freeland, round out that top three of pitchers that get absolutely rocked in that stadium. Scott Alexander comes over to try to give some relief to that bullpen, but good luck when you are playing in thin air. So that is really all you have to say about their pitching. They got to figure that out, which is going to be hard when you play in Colorado. But that is your projections for the Colorado Rockies in 2025. Getting into the storylines. I mean, first and foremost, as blunt as that is, will they be more shit than they were last year? Will they be worse than last year? Are we having a conversation with who gets more wins, the White Sox or the Rockies? Will, what do you think about that?
The Rockies, I think, are going to do a little better than they did last year. They're not going to make a huge jump, and if they make a huge jump, it's because the starting pitching figured out how to keep the ERAs under 5. That seems to be asking too much. That's really the key for this team. Is it's their pitching is just what destroys them. There are things that I do like about their young guys in the lineup. Like aside from Kris Bryant, honestly, 1 through 7, I do think there's a lot of promise for almost all of them, even Jones with his huge setback last year. If Bryant could stay healthy and produce 20 home runs, even if he bats 230, I think they'd be like, hallelujah. But it's the pitching that is just horrendous. They've had the worst ERA in baseball the last 3 seasons, and they've only had 2 times in the last like 10 years that their ERA as a team was under 5. One of those years they won 92 games. So apparently the strategy is you want to make the playoffs have a team ERA of under 5, even if it's still in the mid fours. But like last year it was 5.47. And to make things even like, bleaker, it was 5.67 the year before, then 5.06 the year before that. And it's all about their home ballpark, which is nothing new to everyone else. But if you want to have a bright spot about their pitching, their ERA was 0.7 better at home last year than it was the previous season. Because believe it or not, in 2023, their home ERA was 6.13. Like, doesn't that sound scrumptious?
I mean, it's
So
we've kind of come accustomed to like the all right, like what are the team ERAs when you're looking at statistics? Who ranked the best? Who ranked the worst? The Rockies are always at the bottom. Like you
everything.
that's the assumption. They are like they are you know where they're going to be at. And then it's usually like the White Sox, but like you know where they're at. I agree. I think that they do have some promise in the guys in the middle of their lineup, but the pitching is worrisome and like they have some prospects, but like it just seems like the Rockies always had a pitching problem, regardless of
I
where
wonder
they're
why.
playing. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, John, I think 61 wins last year for the Rockies, projected to get 55 this year. I think maybe that's a little harsh, but like again, is this a conversation we're having where like they're competing with the White Sox here?
Uh, yeah. Look, I have a genuine question here regarding the Rockies. How the hell do you have a closer whose ERA for last year was over 6, and you let that happen all
It's
year?
called
Come
living in the thin air of Colorado.
They just
what? He automatically gets a
Well,
a
there
pass.
was a article that was released sometime within the off season. I forget where, but it was showing like the effect on like which ballpark had the biggest effect on a game. Surprisingly, Colorado actually wasn't first; it was second. The Mariners were first, but from the
The
viewpoint
damn
of
batter's eye.
from the viewpoint of games being affected where it heavily affected the hitters, it was the Rockies hands down. The Mariners were the opposite. It's just pitching was extremely favored in their ballpark. And it just always seems to be something about that thin air in Colorado. They had led the league in home runs allowed last year with 221. They led the league in runs allowed, and they had the worst whip. I'm not saying it's an excuse to have horrendous ERAs, but I do feel like you almost have to take a point away from their ERA to look a little more maybe compared to other teams or focus a little bit on some of the players' away stats to see how good of a player they really are.
Okay, then instead of 6, his ERA is over 5.
Then it
That's
was a
not
bad
better
season.
for a closer.
It's better, but it's still bad.
Their problem is if they ever want to have like an ERA, like a league average ERA, they're gonna have to like lead the league in strikeout percentage by like 5%. Because anything that goes in the air goes out. So like
They're a team that should have gotten the role as Chapman because see, they just need to get all these guys that throw 105 and just be like, you know what,
Hey, with the
we'll
way
get
that baseball is
someone else.
honestly
projecting, that
though,
won't be hard to
honestly,
do.
honestly though, like it's almost like all right, like you gotta kind of take a guy might be wild, but he gets strikeouts. Like take the walk over giving up a home run, and then like you'll live with that, and then get strikeouts. I don't know. I understand it's hard as hell to pitch in Colorado, but
Okay, so
there
Aroldis Chapman, Paul Skeens, and Andrew Vaughn from Major League. That's who needs to make
You
up
also the
the
thing that's weird too
rotation.
is I also feel like you would need to build a team around pitchers that don't throw a lot of breaking balls because that's another thing that seems to get affected in Colorado is that pitchers aren't able to get that bite on their breaking balls, and so they get a lot of spinners, especially for pitchers that aren't used to pitching there. So
yeah.
I almost feel like you need to go high velocity and then have like a killer's changeup or splitter.
Isn't it just wild that this is like something we're talking about? Like, I don't know. It's absolutely
The
crazy, but
the
yeah,
air
like the
quality.
air, but like that's literally such a big point.
They that was it. Rob Manfred could do whatever he want to the humidifiers, like rooms to like for those baseballs. You ain't touching the thing,
The
Colorado.
the problem is too, they have to exclusively do it through the draft because nobody wants to pitch there. Like what
Yeah.
it like what is their biggest pitching signing?
This
Like
year, nothing.
no,
Last
no,
year,
like
probably Cal Quantrill.
like I'm talking like honestly like all time. Like I'm trying to even think like
Well,
who.
I remember that they have one of the worst signings ever because they signed Mike Hampton. You can know who he was, but he falls into that Strasburg category of like he signed like a 7-year deal and pitched like 10 innings and was just always hurt. Like,
You could probably argue their best pitcher was Ubaldo.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what I'm
but they didn't
thinking.
sign him. I think he was raised through the system is the only
That's what I'm
thing.
saying. Yeah, I mean John Gray comes to mind, but
But I
was
think he came up through the
he came
system.
too? Okay,
I think.
like
If not, then I
I
think he
might be
came
missing
really young.
somebody.
Like
Like
it wasn't like a bigger guy that they signed or something.
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look more into that, but it's hard. Now looking at the batting side though, as you said, Will, I think there is some promise. Brenton Doyle again had a nice season last year. Tovar stepped up, and we were calling his praises for maybe playing in the All-Star game. Um, it's just Nolan Jones down there. Like that was really the effect. They add Estrada, who I don't think really adds too much to their team. Maybe is a okay addition in there to plug what was Brendan Rodgers, who I wanted him to be good so bad, and it just never happened. But I don't know, Will. Like, what do you kind of make of like? Like, do you think that young core can take that next step this year?
I think they can. I think they absolutely can knock in runs for this Colorado team. I have no faith in the pitching. That's just really what it is. I mean, just based on Zips, they have 4 guys projected to hit over 20 home runs. If everything goes the way you want, it could be 6. That's asking a lot, and it's possibly even 7 if you factor in someone like Estrada, who was projected to hit 14 home runs and was playing in San Francisco last year, not Colorado. So you have to factor in the Colorado effect. Like, it's just the offense is to me is not the problem, even though, yeah, sure, it's probably going to be much more of go big
It's
or go
everybody
home type
else's
of
offense that's the
mentalities.
problem.
I mean, I'm not gonna ask anything for Stallings, who's been around for a while, but I mean, I don't see an issue with this team putting up 4 to something, even 5 runs a game. I just have issues with the ERA keeping it within that same range, and so it's just disheartening if you are as an offense and you don't know what to do. I mean, they don't really have a lot of high on base percentage guys, so it's obviously a swing and see what happens. But in Coors Field, that's not the worst plan of attack.
Yeah, honestly. And like, if they could get anything again out of Kris Bryant, it would be nice. But
I don't
yeah,
know why. I still have hope that at some point he's going to at least somewhat find it. I don't think he's going to be anywhere close to what he was in Chicago. But for starters, to have your career go worse when you enter Colorado just doesn't feel like the right narrative.
yeah,
Like, I don't see as a hitter how you get worse, and seeing how with the numbers Bryant had put up for some seasons in Chicago that it would drop the way it has. Now, obviously, if he's just always hurt, yeah, that's a problem. But I get if he can hit 20 home runs and bat 240 and walk a fair amount, then I mean, like, whatever. Like, that's all you really need from him. You just don't want these like pitiful like 210 averages, can't even hit like 3 home runs, and then he's hurt for 100 games.
yeah. Um, yeah, I think that, like I said, there is, if he can step up. But John, like, how do you see like these young guys performing for them this year again? Like, they have the advantage of playing in cores, and maybe that's inflates their numbers, but I think there is something to say about their young core.
I think that might be the key that you just said, is that it inflates their numbers from a power side. If
Trevor
I
Story.
am, well, yeah. Anyway, in terms of their on base percentage, that's what I'm looking at, and these numbers have got to come up, especially from these non-power hitters, such as Stallings, or I mean Estrada or Hilliard. They've got to get on base so that the big guys like Tovar, McMahon, Bryant, when he's healthy, can knock them in, and instead of scoring 1 run off a home run, you get 2, 3, 4 at a time here, and that's how you're going to have to keep up, because you almost have to. It's almost going to be a sprint to the finish here for the entire season for them offensively, because defensively, pitching wise, it's pitiful. It's absolutely pitiful. You're gonna have to score 6, 7, 8 runs a game in order to be good. And that's not it's not sustainable. They're gonna do what they can, but you know, it is what it is.
Do
Rockies
you
need a video game team to go with their video game rookie
sta-
level pitching.
stadium?
Yeah.
I have an idea. Let's just take the Dodgers pitching.
And push them somewhere else.
Yeah, we'll take the Dodgers pitching, give that to the Rockies. We'll give the Rockies pitching to the Dodgers, and
And then
then
the
we'll
Dodgers will win
have
the
a
World Series
competitive
with the
balance.
Rockies pitching. No, they'll win the World Series. The Dodgers with the Rockies pitching, and the Dodgers pitching will be terrible in Colorado because it's Colorado.
Yeah.
The one guy I want to talk about, Will, is Nolan Jones, because he really was their kind of like next superstar up deal, and he really stepped back last year. Are you concerned about that for him? Like, what do you think he does in 2025?
Well, first, because I'm forgetting, was he hurt at all?
We're
Like,
gonna check. We're gonna check that real
Yes.
quick. Okay.
because I mean, I know he didn't play the entire season, so I want to say, I mean, I know,
He
yes,
only
he was
played
hurt.
79 games, so he
Okay.
missed more than half the season.
Or
Okay.
was it hurt, or was it because of just how bad he was? Because he, 227, or no, I'm looking at Bryant's numbers for some reason by accident.
Let's put
Jones
it this
was
way: his
227.
WAR is negative.
Yeah, that's not good.
So
No, he
yeah,
had 227, 3 home runs, and a 641 OPS. I don't remember his exact line from the previous year, but I know it was a lot better. So, it's just now I know sophomore slumps are always the thing, and we mentioned it of whether certain players will have sophomore slumps this year, and it seems to happen more often than it doesn't. But like this was a major drop off. But I also feel like it was such a major drop off that it feels very uncharacteristic. Like his projection, as you would kind of expect going into your third season, is very in the middle of what his first season numbers were in last season. So his projection based on Zips is 261 with 16 home runs. And he does have a 787 um, OPS, which does look very nice. I feel like he will get back to the 20 home run mark, but the question is he going to have a higher average like he did in his first year? And you're going to find out last year was a fluke, either because he was always dealing with an injury or something, or whether something else was going on that we don't know about that really messed with his numbers. Or he'll maybe get back to that 20 home run total, but his average won't be there. And then he'll find out that the first year the average part was the fluke. But I feel like 3 home runs is really pitiful, kind of to expect that low again this year.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to do. So to answer your question, by the way, he missed about a month and a half from late April to mid June, and then he missed about mid July to mid August, so about a month there. So in total, he
Caesar
did.
was dealing with stuff on and off throughout the season.
Yeah,
I think it's reasonable to think that those were always kind of factors.
yeah, and I think so. I think you're right about that, and it was like a back issue too, which probably is
Yeah,
like
they
a
could be.
lingering thing.
Yeah.
So I would expect him to bounce back this year. I do want to talk about Kris Bryant because I think it like in more in depth than kind of we already had, because as Will already said, he went to Colorado and somehow got worse in the power department. But this is a guy that's on a 7-year, $182 million deal through 2028. And the big question is like, is he really going to be able to play over even like 100 games? Sounds crazy. He played 37 games in 2024, 80 in 23, and 42 in 2022. It's another Anthony Rendon situation. John, he just can't stay on the field. What what do we do for this? He's now 33, by the way.
what do we do? Possibly cut our losses here. The reality of the situation is that he, since going to Colorado, has not played a full season. His batting average has been below average to just above. He's barely above the Mendoza line as it is. He's not producing. It might be good. It might be time to cut ties. It might be time to move on. Maybe see if there's a team. If say he has a good season, okay. Say he has a good season for him. He stays healthy. He come the trade deadline. Why not try and trade him for some prospects?
He's got to
No
Like,
one's going to take him.
well,
he's got to play good. That's
Well,
the
the funny
that's
caveat
thing,
to
the thing.
this.
like John was saying, he hasn't played a full season. Literally, his 3 years in Colorado combined could be a full season because he's played in 159 games. And now going back to our favorite stat, over those 3 years, he has a minus 1.3 WAR. Like it's not just a 1 year thing; it's the entire time. He's a 250
It's
hitter
crazy
with
to
17
think.
home runs and 60 RBIs.
It's interesting you bring up his WAR. His WAR in Chicago is 27.7.
Yeah, well,
His WAR for the 2 months he was with the Giants was 1.1.
I hate the war stat. I do, but I love it when it becomes negative. That's when I love that stat, because it just shows like how bad somebody is. But I mean, he again was dealing with a bunch of stuff, back injury, one of it, and it's like I agree with John. The problem is he's got to play and produce at some what of a rate that a team would be interested in taking on that contract. Like that's the issue. Like I don't really foresee that happening. I think he's kind of stuck there, which if that's the case for the Rockies, like you gotta hope he figures it out because he takes a lot, like he takes up a big chunk of a not very, like they don't spend money. So like, and he's taking up most of it. I feel like they're kind
I
of
was gonna say they
strapped
don't
with that.
spend money because all of it's in Bryant.
Yeah, like they're kind of strapped. So like they better do some shit to get him working because I don't really see them as a contender unless again these guys take a big step in the next few years. If you're
No.
paying a guy that much money and he's not doing anything, and you could use that money on three or four other like average players, like I just don't even know. Like I'll ask this question: when do you guys think they're in the conversation of playoffs again? Are we talking?
When is
Well,
Shohei
so
leave the
here's the weird
Dodgers?
thing about I feel like Colorado's situation is like, I mean, obviously it's, or I shouldn't say obviously, but I mean a big factor is still how that like young core that we talked about earlier looks again this year. I still am sticking with I don't think the offense is that bad. It's just when the pitching either figures it out or they bring in a guy that doesn't end up blowing up his career. And it's a weird thing where like it could literally happen like I don't want to say overnight because I don't think it's going to happen this year, but like two signings, a couple guys have turned their ERAs from sixes to fours, and next thing you know, the team ERA now is at like 4.8 instead of 5.4. And with that, like I don't think then that makes it unrealistic to see them in the wild card conversation, like in that sixth seed.
Yeah.
But it's just that you don't know what's going to work. And as like John alluded to earlier, no one wants to pitch for the Rockies. So you also have to have that those people that are willing to go to Colorado. So it's almost like their best bet if they want to at all try to make a leap is if they can't get one guy to go to Colorado, it's try to start signing guys or try to sign guys who are looking for rebound years, kind of like what they did with Daniel Bard a few years back, which didn't work out by the end of the contract. But I think it was the first year, if not the first year, the second year, where he had an ERA of under 2, which is like unheard of in Colorado. So they need to just rely on bounce back pitchers or something, or some people like in that like are trying to rebuild their worth and then test free agency again and just use that to try to get them in the playoffs.
I'm looking at their like top prospects too, and about
Doesn't matter.
no, I know, but like, all right, so about I think it's like 5 out of 10 of them are pitchers, which I guess is good. Their top prospect, who's number 12 overall, Chase Dollander, is a
He's a
pitcher.
pitcher.
Yeah. So, all right, here's my question. And I'll pose this to both of you, John. I'll let you go first after I ask this. So, they have one guy in the MLB top 100, and I think this is based off last year's ranking. So maybe this isn't a good question for now. Um, but the White Sox had six. Who do you think makes the playoffs first, the White Sox or the Rockies?
White
Rockies.
Sox.
Ooh.
Oh, there we go.
Here's
Here's our argument that we have
Let's
with our
go. Let's go. Let's go right now, baby. Let's go.
So
Oh,
you
the
said
Henry Cavill, like
so so you said White Sox, John?
Yeah, I think that the amount of prospects they have is really a feather in their cap. The Rockies don't have anything.
But they
In
have a more
terms of
established team though. So
they have a more established team right now.
yeah.
In the future, though, I could see that script flipping, and then plus you always have that argument of their pitching. Will it always be, dog shit? So you have that issue always with Colorado, and it's not going to change until maybe ever. Like unless they move the team, I don't foresee that argument ever changing. So you know, the reality is that it's easier to get better pitching prospects and have them develop at a lower altitude than Colorado, and I
good
think
way of
that goes
putting it.
without saying. So yeah, plus the White Sox also have the advantage of they are in a big market of Chicago, and the Rockies just don't have that advantage.
I want to to that point, this is kind of insane. I I am looking at so this is from MLB.com, the all-time pitching leaders for the Rockies. Their best pitcher ever, and I think this is with at least over 100 games played. The best ERA ever in their history is a 3.38, and he did it in 428 games. Crazy. That's crazy. Like Brian Fuentes, by the way.
I'm
So
looking at. So I was curious about this. So I went back to their World Series season in 2007. Their team, their rotation did not have an ERA below 4.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I believe
the
it.
closest they got was 412, 4.12, and that was Aaron Cook. Okay, so that wasn't even their number one guy.
He was cooking.
Yeah, their best pitcher was a relief pitcher for them. Manny, I'm gonna mispronounce this. Corpus. I apologize if I
Purpose.
did.
Manny Corpus.
Anyway,
Yeah,
so that was their best pitcher that year. You can argue this has always been a problem. This will always be a problem. And the question is that can they just get lucky enough where it just clicks? I mean, their thing that year was it wasn't even like their offense wasn't even full of power guys. Their offense was just consistent
Matt
in terms
Holliday
of
was really
hits.
yeah.
Matt Holliday was really good. He had 216 hits, had an on base percentage of 405, and their on base percentages are high. They're above
good.
350, except for one guy, and that is Yorvit. I'm not even
Yorvi
gonna.
Torrealba, the catcher.
Wow. Oh, what a pull by Will.
I'm not even. I'm not even. I wasn't even going to attempt that one.
So
You're welcome.
basically, the Rockies just have to have they have to have
They have to
Arizona's
have
offense.
good enough pitching
They
and a
have
good
to.
offense. And
Yeah.
all right,
if
so
they
now
had good enough pitching and get on base.
All right, so to counter John's thing,
Yes.
even though I know it's not like I mean it's whatever you think on either side. I don't feel like it's a strong pull either way.
Yeah, it's hypothetical.
No, I'm heated. No. Well, my thing with the I guess going just simply on my thoughts for both teams of what I've said, because we did the White Sox a few episodes ago. The White Sox, to me, given their young core, I don't see them being a 500 team really, at least for 3 years. So maybe 20. Well, I say three. I guess I'm thinking three as in 2025 season is a year. So it would be 2027. And with that, then I would think that maybe it then takes another couple years after that. So I'm thinking in 5 years, the White Sox might then be a playoff team. But so the thing about the Rockies is what I was saying is if I'm still thinking that they're going to have this young lineup core, at least for the most part, probably not McMahon, but they're going to have this for the next 3 years at least, because they still have team control for a lot of them for a while, that if at some point they can have, like I said, it just needs to be enough good pitching. Quantrill did really well for them last year as someone they brought in. They have maybe one young guy like Dollander come up, and maybe they sign a couple pitchers that are trying to rebound. Suddenly they have maybe like Marquez is still on the team and he brings in the year that's under 5. It's like 4.5. You have a couple bullpen guys that suddenly their ERAs are in the 3s, not in the upper 4s. Next thing you know, this Rockies team, which could have had maybe the previous year 65, 68 wins, so all of a sudden got like 84. And nowadays, with the some seasons with the 6 wild card spot, that's enough.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Rockies I feel like if the conversation was who's more likely to win the division, it's the White Sox, and it's not even close.
Well, that's because
but the playoff situation is a completely different scenario because you have 6 guys. And let's say there have been on and off talks about expansion in the not so distant future. When I say not so distant, I mean like maybe in the next 10 years. Yeah. Like if around 2030 or something, it gets expanded to 32 teams, and maybe they choose to expand the playoffs then by 1 extra team for each league. Now there's another team that you can get in, where they reconstruct the standings. There's all types of hypotheticals there. But my main thing is the Rockies, to me, have a good enough offense, not a great, but a good enough offense, especially compared to other playoff teams, that I feel like they could compete. They just don't have the pitching to do it, but they have enough talent in the pitching, and they could potentially pull in that secret player that people don't want to take the risk on, and that could be enough to suddenly throw them back in really like randomly into a wild card competition.
Last question, another dumb hypothetical one. We were talking about the Diamondbacks, how their pitching literally lost, like made them not get in the playoffs. because they tried to out hit their problems, but they couldn't. If the Diamondbacks played in Colorado for all of last season, how many wins do they have? Like 120? Like
The
in that field?
Diamondbacks played last year.
In Colorado the whole year.
Then I'm going to say the record. They would have lost 4 games than what they've had. They would have won 85, and they would have lost. They would have had. They would have had at least, let's say, 5 games where they lost like 15-12.
Okay, yeah.
Probably would have been in the playoffs.
Good. Yeah, I was gonna say that's Colorado for you. And the other thing with the Rockies is, man, that's not a fun division to be at the bottom of. I'll say that as well. But that is all
You can't even
for.
claw your way out of that.
No,
division.
you can't. You literally can't.
Yeah, you have. I don't know if you can put all your faith in the Giants yet.
Not yet. And we will get to them coming up in our Around the League in 30 days. This is day 10. This has been the Rockies. Next, we head to Detroit, the Gritty Tigers. Gonna talk about them for day 11. I know you hate it.
We're talking about the Gritty Kitties.
I know John hates that. That is all for us here at Big League Breakdowns. Follow us on Twitter at BL_breakdowns, Big League Breakdowns, everywhere else. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're liking the content. Like the video if you enjoyed it. As again, we will be finishing up this 30 teams in 30 days. A third of the way through, gentlemen. And again, next time we have the Tigers. But until that time, we will see you later.
If we're going to Detroit, you're going to want to wear your seatbelt.